my mom grew up with a father who was an addict. So my grandfather was an addict, and then both my dad's parents, who I never met because of their diseases, were addicts. Like never even met them. So that's already setting a precedent in both sides of the family, creating households for the children where they had to be codependent. Talk about my parents. So it's like they weren't actively in addiction, nothing that I saw, but it's like some of those codependent traits of like, well, we just got to look the part, we got to act right, we got to get these good grades, we got to present well, was like the energy in the family. So it's like, and they did a great job raising me. I ain't ever finna, they did tremendous. But it's like, that turned me into a performer at a very young age. And when I didn't feel like I was performing, the inability to deal with the overwhelm inside of me, or the failure or the shame that would just kind of like naturally come up. When I was 15, some homies had some painkillers. They was like, these will make you feel good. You know, in a time where I'm not feeling good, I try them and I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
And then a year later, I'm around folks that smoking weed. This is it too. Then I get past a Bud Light a year later, some Sky vodka. This is it too. Like it just kind of calms everything down, or at least it just numbs everything out.
Yeah.
And at the time, you know, you don't emotionally, I don't have the infrastructure to know that, oh, I'm not dealing with anything.
No, you're just self-medicating.
I'm suppressing, and I don't have the ability to put those together. But yeah, to answer your question, my addiction started when I was like 15 and went until I got sober a month. I got sober because I overdosed a month before my 25th birthday.
So you overdosed on painkillers?
Yeah, some Percocet that ended up being fentanyl.
Wow. How did that play out? Because usually that can be fatal and very quickly.
There is no comeback stories.
No, there's not. Like, did somebody have a Narcan pen?
There was nobody around. I woke up in my car.
Wow. And that was your dark night of the soul, come to Jesus moment?
That's I don't have the monopoly on who God is, what God's name is, but there's a power that is greater than this man sitting on his couch that had a plan for me to not be done on that day, because a lot of people get stopped if they ingest what I ingested that day.
So your addiction issues overlapped with your NFL career, correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Majorly.
So what did that look like on a day where you have a game and, I don't know, I guess the stress has reached a boiling point for you? What does that look like in terms of your use of drugs and in combination with you playing the game?
Well, I mean, I would pretty much use it every day. If I'm not doing perks every day, like I'm drinking one day, or smoking one day, I'm always doing it like after I get off of work. Like there's only like a couple times where I'm doing it like before I'm going in and we have like practice or a game or something. It's like usually in times where I'm like, all right, there's time before I have to go back to work. But I was in the building and I'm like living like this double life almost. Like I was always great at, putting the mask on, putting the like, yes sir, no sir. And like, I could look you in the eye and like have a deep conversation with you and we could laugh and, and leave people with the impression of like, man, like it's a good kid. Like he works hard and he knows the playbook front and back, and he's treats everybody in the building nicely. Then it's like, man, when he leaves, we don't know what he does or who he turns into, type of deal. So it's like I said, it was always like showing talent. There's no way the Baltimore Ravens would have still held on to me after them drafting me, knowing my college history and the stuff that I was doing while still there. They would not have held on to me if they didn't see the things and potential I guess I had early on in my career. But yeah, it was just like whenever I left, it was like, just get into it.
You know what I'm thinking about while you're sitting here? I'm thinking about the parallels between you and Aaron Hernandez. I can't help but think about them.
Yeah.
You know, he had severe addiction issues, amongst other issues that we're now aware of, but he had severe addiction issues throughout his college career. He had that resulted in behavioral issues, that resulted in the potential for him getting, kicked off teams and that sort of thing. And also he showed all of these red flags that people just completely ignored. You guys play the same position. Watching his story unfold, what did that do for you or do to you?
It put an emphasis on the fact that there's not anybody that's really gonna show up and like really truly like help you heal or go help you like search these dark corners of your life or your story, to like connect those dots and change your relationships to these memories. Like they're gonna be there and be like, they're gonna celebrate the talent. Like, man, Aaron Hernandez, he was just a great tight end, wasn't he? And like, man, he had all these signs and all these, and because people aren't necessarily, on the average basis, we're not concerned with mental health. We don't want to go that deep. We want to hang out at the surface. We don't want to touch those parts. So it's like we're just gonna hang out with Aaron Hernandez's talent and what he could have been, as opposed to being like, man, this dude is crying out for help, and nobody is gonna try to like meet him where he's at or try to like show some vulnerability around him to where maybe he might feel welcome to share more. So I don't know. It's just like you see such promise, but it's like, what the fuck is the promise or the potential worth if the human being is insane? Like we get caught up on like what the human being can do and all he can accomplish, but like what about the person like that's suffering and dying, even though he's dancing and making everybody and entertaining, but like he's dying.
From the outside looking in, it seems that athletes are taught to suppress everything in the name of toughness. Like, would you agree with that?
I grew up in that era. It was, our football coaches when we were younger, we ain't fucking crying out here. Rub some dirt on that shit. Like, like man up. I grew up with all that.
But there's so much that's so paradoxical about that. How do you maintain your sense of humanity when you have to be, such a beast or an animal or just, completely, one-dimensional on the field? How do you get off of that and be a three-dimensional human being who like honors their feelings? How does that work?
Well, we don't say it, but we clearly prioritize production over peace of mind or, over sanity. Like we'd rather you go out there and catch 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns or score 30 in the NBA finals. And if you're suffering at home and struggling, we don't care as long as you're putting 30 up. Like we don't say that, but that's kind of a world that we live in, I feel like.
Yeah, I compare that to the same way that people are militarized. The same kind of training, psychological training that men or people who go into the military are exposed to is the same thing the athletes are exposed to. And then when they come home or leave the league, they're expected to blend right in with society. How do you unlearn this stuff?
You got to do a lot of, that's why I feel like there's like the EMDR is something that I've gotten into, but it's like a top like trauma therapy. It allows a lot of like soldiers, like whatever your trauma is, to go back and like change your relationships to these moments that you have that are traumatic for you and that trigger you to be like this person that's in war or combat. Because like football, like we're celebrated our entire life for imposing our will on people. Like imagine like an offensive lineman or like you get paid, we cheer for you, we pat you on the back when you just run through somebody's face. When in the rest of your life, you need to be set up for having compassion for other people and being patient, and like that's not what we get celebrated for. Nobody's showing us this because we're getting all these stats and getting all this money, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. But it's like that's not really setting us up to have a long life of peace. So it's like there's a lot of therapy that needs to be done, but we ain't talking about that. There's a lot of things that need to change, mindsets, belief systems that need to change. But it's like we're never really told these things. We're just like, get out there and ball, man. Like, and that's pretty much it until you can. Then there's a new young dude we can put in there.
EMDR, I don't think I've ever heard of that. Tell me more, because I love learning about new modalities.
Yeah, I want to leave the detailed explanation to medical professionals, but
Okay, but it's something that you've experienced. So
yeah.
talk about your experience with EMDR.
So I do like a more of a bilateral stimulation form of EMDR.
Okay.
So where like I hold these tappers and it like there's something that's going on in your brain neurologically where if those sensations are going off from left to right, that it's opening the brain somehow for you to go in there in like a neuroplastic way to like change your relationships to memories. So it's like I'll go in there and have done a lot of childhood stuff like rejection wounds, things that have harmed me and made me like a validation seeker. Like I can go back and my therapist is leading me through these visualizations. It's like we say, okay, what do we want to talk about today? Times where I felt like I wasn't wanted or felt rejected. And it's like we go back into these memories, like the 6th grade version of me that got dumped by this girl in front of the whole school, and like she went with the 8th grader, and it's like going back to that moment where that kid didn't have anybody to be there for him. It's like my healthy, functional adult self can go into that moment and like start affirming myself in that moment and like reparenting that younger version of that child or these younger versions of myself. And like I'm being led through these like hypnosis or like scripts. And so that's like a very helpful thing because yeah, there's these dudes in the league, like they've been through so many things. Like I remember, I never forget, I saw Deion Sanders once. He was like, I don't want my defensive players, I want my defensive players from single parent homes. Like, because they're like more aggressive. They have like an edge, like the neighborhoods that they grew up in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he understands that. Like, and those dudes understand that. Like but that's like trauma. That's like things like it's propelling them in their careers and helping them perform. But at the same time, it's like, that's real pain that hasn't been dealt with because the career is gonna run out, but the pain is still gonna be there and direct you at the end of the day when your career is over with. So it's like, I feel like EMDR is a great modality for that.